Welcome to the Unsolved. Today's unsolved mystery, the Bennington Triangle. The Bennington Triangle is a phrase coined by New England author Joseph A. Citro during a radio broadcast in 1992 to denote an area of Vermont where 6 people went missing between 1945 and 1950. These disappearances still leave people puzzled as to what really went on. The stretch of woodlands around Glastonbury Mountain include the towns of Bennington, Woodford, and Shaftesbury, as well as 2 ghost towns, Somerset and Glastonbury. One of the disappearances is believed to have been an abduction, as detectives made it to the middle of the trail where the descent mysteriously ended. Some claim to have sighted UFOs, some say it was haunted, as well as some claiming to have seen the legendary Bigfoot in the vicinity, which makes you really wonder what kind of things may have actually occurred in the triangle. The first disappearance happened on November 12th, 1945, when 74-year-old Mitty Rivers disappeared. Rivers was an experienced hunter and fisherman and was familiar with the local area. And while out hunting, Rivers was guiding a group of 4 hunters up the mountain. On the way back to the hunter camp, Rivers got ahead of the group, and after a while the hunters not seeing or hearing from him, an extensive search was conducted, but the only evidence discovered was a single rifle cartridge that was found in the stream. The speculation was that Rivers had leaned over and the cartridge had dropped out of his pocket into the water. No other evidence was found, and he was never seen again. The second disappearance occurred on December 1st, 1946, where 18-year-old Paula Jean Weldon disappeared, a little over a year later from the first disappearance. Weldon was a sophomore at Bennington College. She had set out for a hike on the Long Trail. Many saw her go, including Ernest Whitman, a Bennington Banner employee who gave her directions. She was alleged to have been seen out on the trail itself by an elderly couple who were 100 yards behind her. According to them, she turned a corner on the trail, and when they reached the same corner, she was nowhere in sight. An extensive search was conducted when Weldon did not return to the campus, which included a posting of a $5,000 reward and help from the FBI. However, no evidence of her was ever found. Also, she was not wearing a jacket, and considering that it was a cool 50 degrees outside, and then later that night, it dropped to 9 degrees. Unconfirmed rumors speculated that she had moved to Canada with a boyfriend, or that she had become a recluse living in the mountains. Weldon's disappearance was the inspiration for the 1951 novel, Hangsman by Shirley Jackson, and after her disappearance, it led to the creation of the Vermont State Police. The third incident was on May 5th, 1948, where 26-year-old Betty Frazier was reported missing by her husband, Declan Frazier. Mr. Frazier had reportedly grown concerned about his wife's wild behavior, and when she failed to make the journey back from the local bar on foot, he reported her as missing. Initially, the bartender, Troy Rogers, was accused in her disappearance after a patron claimed that he had given her a ride home after closing time. However, a later recreation of the route driven disproves this theory, given his alibi in the later part of the evening. The last sighting of her was by a neighbor, who had reported seeing her walking unsteadily along Highway 30 in the general direction of Bennington. They told police it's like she was in a trance, and that she ignored their offers for a ride home. Her body was discovered 1 month later and 17 miles away from the bar on the Forest Trail in West Dover. The case was closed as death by misadventure, although the distance traveled and prominent location of the body led some of the locals to label the case suspicious. The fourth person to disappear was a 68-year-old veteran named James E. Tedford. He went missing on December 1st, 1949, exactly 3 years after Paula Weldon had disappeared. Tedford was a resident of the Bennington Soldiers' Home. He had been in Franklin visiting his wife and relatives who had accompanied him to the bus station in St. Albans. According to a witness, Tedford got on the bus, and he was still on the bus at the last stop before arriving in Bennington. And this would be the last time he would ever be seen, because somewhere between the last stop and Bennington, Tedford vanished. His belongings were still in the luggage rack, and there was an open bus timetable on his vacant seat. He was never heard from again. The fifth person to vanish was 8-year-old Paul Jepson on October 12, 1950. Jepson had accompanied his mother for a ride in their truck, where she left her son unattended in the truck while she fed their pigs. His mother was gone for about an hour, and when she returned, her son was nowhere in sight. She called out his name with no response. Then she called everyone she knew and the police. Search parties were formed to look for Jepson. but nothing was ever found. Even though Jepson was wearing a bright red jacket, this should have made him more visible. According to one story, bloodhounds tracked the boy to a local highway, where according to local legend 4 years earlier, Paula Weldon had disappeared near. The sixth disappearance occurred just 16 days after Jepson had vanished. On October 28, 1950, 53-year-old Frida Langer and her cousin Herbert Elsner left their family campsite near the Somerset Reservoir to go on a hike. During the hike, Langer slipped and fell into a stream. She told Elsner if he would wait, she would go back to the campsite, change clothes, and catch up to him. When she did not return for a while, Elsner made his way back to the campsite and discovered Langer had never returned, and that nobody had seen her since they had left earlier. Over the next 2 weeks, 5 searches were conducted, involving aircraft, helicopters, and up to 300 searchers. No trace of Langer was found during the search. But on May 12, 1951, her body was found 3.5 miles from the camp at Somerset Reservoir in the East Branch of the Deerfield River, an area that had only been lightly searched several months prior. No cause of death could be determined because of the condition of her remains. Langer was the last person to disappear, and only 2 of the 6 bodies were found. No direct connections have been identified that tie these cases together, other than the coincidence of the general area and time period. So what do you think happened? Is there really UFOs? Haunted woods? Was it really Bigfoot? Or just some really weird accidents that happened? Nobody really knows. Let us know your thoughts on these occasions in the comments. Thanks for stopping by the Unsolved. And until next time, keep on keeping on.